Find us on social media at KHTS Radio.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome back to a place where we can all agree on the important stuff. It's good to have you here. Today is September 14th. It's going to be a great show. We'll be covering your legal concerns with expert Lou Esbin, who is my co-host today, as well as discussing the recent conventions and the overall state of the union, just current events in general. I want to try something a little different today, so I hope you'll bear with me. Just want to have a conversation with the inimitable Lou Esbin. Are you there? Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jason, just fine.
Okay, good. How are you doing this week?
Doing well, just another day in the post-COVID world, I guess.
Post-COVID?
Oh, yeah. It's after the first day of it, whenever that was. Was it March 15th?
Well, sure. Yeah, I guess, yeah. No, absolutely. We're still in the midst of it, though. I mean, it's interesting that you say that because, I know the conventions now were a couple weeks back, but we've had a couple weeks off, so I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about them. But one of the themes, it seemed, was, I won't call it a theme, but some of the speakers sort of acted like COVID-19 was a thing of the past. And so when you said post-COVID, it reminded me of them.
No, I was thinking more of, and it's interesting because I see March 15th as kind of the day, because that's, I guess, when California went into lockdown.
Right.
So it's interesting that the Ides of March, what is that day? And, of course, we go back to Shakespeare, and Shakespeare, of course, warned Julius Caesar of the Ides of March.
Yes, indeed. So what do you think that says about November? Is that something?
I don't know. So that's why I say post-COVID, because I think of March 15th is when it began. But no, it's not. It's not anywhere near over.
Not anywhere near over. It certainly doesn't feel that way. And this is kind of the theme that I want to go back to and around and circle through and under today. And that's this idea of reality. Because what I was seeing watching the Democratic convention and then watching the Republican convention, and so much has happened since then, even just in the past couple of weeks, is how different our realities are. And when I say our, I mean the American people. I mean, watching those conventions, I don't know how you felt, but they just seemed like they were coming at not just what's going on in the country, whether you're talking about the racial tension, whether you're talking about the coronavirus. They're coming at it from completely different places, it seems to me. Did you get that impression?
They were two very different realities.
Okay.
Yeah. And you got to use reality loosely today.
This is what I want to talk about. Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, this is what I find confusing and has really been rocking my world these past couple of weeks since then, is just the idea. Now look, I learned at a young age that people have their own truths, right? I mean, look, when I was a teenager, I was accused of doing something that I didn't do. We've all been accused of, I saw you cheating on that test. No, I didn't. I really wasn't. Whatever. This was a little more serious than that. And I learned at 18, 19 years old that people have their beliefs, they have their own truths, they have their own reality, and there's nothing that you can do to really change that. And that was extremely frustrating and eye-opening for me. However, I didn't think that it applied to actual factual information so much. And I know we've talked about this on the show plenty, but it really struck me this week how, I mean, look, I want to bring up QAnon. I want to bring up all these things that I've been wanting to bring up for a long time, where we're seeing just this chasm between what I view as reality and what the person standing next to me views as reality.
Well, I to me, it's as if I am living through Orwell's 1984, where the message that is being given to the public changes as the need arises.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Well, okay. I mean, that reminds me of Bob Woodward, coming out with the tapes and whatnot, right? So, a lot of folks have been talking about that, including the nominees for the presidential election, kind of got sidetracked. And yet, it doesn't matter what seems to come out or is revealed about the current administration or the current occupant. It doesn't seem to matter. And that concerns me a little bit too, because I consider myself, someone who has viewpoints and whatnot, but I also feel like, if a truth is revealed to me, I can be swayed. And yet, I mean, do you think this falls on just a party line? It doesn't matter. I'm never going to vote Democratic. You know what I mean? Is it that, or is it something deeper?
I think that each side has its own truth. And when you talk with one side about what the other side says about them, they have almost a scripted response. And I think it goes for both sides. And that's just the world we're in today. I don't ever remember it being like this. And I just don't.
It's certainly.
But I think it goes on both sides. And look, as far as Woodward's concerned, if that's what he was told in the interview, and he cared about his readers, he cared about the public, he cared about what the effect was, more than the dollar, shouldn't he not have come out and said, wait a second, this is what he said, and this is what he's doing? So I think there's responsibility on Bob Woodward's part.
Yeah.
You can't ignore that. It was like Bolton. When Bolton knew certain things, but he wouldn't testify before Congress because his book was coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Very, very similar. Yeah.
As Rotarians, we're guided by service above self, and is it truth? Is it the four-way test? The four-way test is absent in today's charged political environment, and certainly there is no service above self. It's all about the self.
I guess I just wonder where it goes. Where does it go? Because
we haven't hit the bottom yet.
What does the bottom look like?
Oh God!
You know,
some people said Mad Max. Some people have said Mad Max, right?
Well, I mean, look, he had a rally in Nevada, right? This past week, the first indoor rally since the one he tried back in Tulsa, right?
Right.
Flouting the state's law. And look, I don't even know where to begin, because I feel like you can trace this back and back and back. But let's go back to the conventions for just a minute. That week, okay, that week, just that week was insane. While while we were watching the RNC and them saying things like, here's a question for you as an attorney. Here's a question. I know I'm going all over the place just a little bit, but it all comes back to one thing. What is the difference between, Giuliani standing up there and saying that Biden is pro-criminal, anti-police, and a socialist? What's the difference between that and lying or slander? I know that in the political arena, people sling mud all the time. Is this just another form of that? Or has it gone to another level? Because none of that's true.
I think it's gone to another level, Jason.
Okay. All right. Because
now it's gone to the level of say whatever you can get away with until you get caught. Isn't it?
So while
look, didn't the president say to the people of North Carolina, vote twice?
Yes. Yes.
Right? And isn't that not a crime under North Carolina law?
This is what I mean. Like, where does the line? I mean, look, you could say that about a lot of the sort of anti-government, authoritarian type of leanings that he has, but he hasn't made any real changes to policy yet. You know what I mean? So he could just be, that's his TV personality kind of thing, and not really effectual in any way. So it's all talk. Bark as opposed to bite. So maybe we don't have much to worry about in that regard, but this doesn't concern his supporters at all. Not at all. Mm-hmm. They see him as a hero, as fighting against something. Like they're rebellions, they're rebels in a way. And this brings me back to that week of the RNC when Jacob Blake was shot 7 times by a police officer. I still don't know the details. We know that they had been called to the scene and that a restraining order was against him. He had 3 children in the car. He says he was trying to break up a dispute. The officers were focused on him because there was a warrant out for his arrest. So clearly, he has a history. But, the video shows him calmly walking around his car. No, he's not running. He's not hitting. He's not fighting, with a police officer holding a gun to his head as he walks to his door. And then he shoots him 7 times. So the use of deadly force in that instance, whether he's a criminal or not, has a criminal history or not. Anyway, so this is happening during the RNC. And then 2 days later, a 17-year-old kid carries an illegal firearm over state lines to protect property that doesn't belong to him, and ends up shooting 3 people, killing 2 of them. And
on tape.
On tape. And it seems that Trump and his supporters, Trump came out and, more or less called him, more or less supported him, which to me is staggering.
And you have to look, but I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Please
2 sheriffs are shot at point blank range yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just heard a report that in Chicago, 65 police officers have been shot at this year. So the relationship between the public and law enforcement has so deteriorated that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that after 9/11, the federal budget, money went from the federal government to local governments to basically militarize the police. And so the police were no longer community patrols. They were very militarized, and they've become very militarized. There needs to be a dialogue, and I think this unfunding of police is the wrong catchphrase. It's the wrong nomenclature. It's not defunding police, but isn't it reallocating dollars go so that the police aren't so militarized. But now with what's going on, they're saying, well, we need to be militarized because look what's going on in the streets. We're going down a rabbit hole that in my lifetime I never thought we'd go.
Well,
and you don't have any leadership. There's just a lack of leadership from the top down in every level of government.
Okay, so in regards to that, because I agree with you, in regards to that, you saw over and over and over again in the convention and in all other talking points coming from this current administration, it's the Democrats. They're doing this, they're doing that, but they hold the White House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. So that really confuses me as well. That stance, that position, the blame game, because they're saying they can't do anything. They're saying they have no control because something that the Democrats are doing.
Well, they're saying
what is that based on?
The major metropolitan cities are the major metropolitan cities. The mayors are Democrats, and that's what they're saying. Oh, look what's happening in the major cities where the mayors are Democrats. That's what they were saying. They were saying.
So they're saying the state government.
The mayor of San Francisco, an African American woman, she was the first one to lock down a major city in the U.S., San Francisco. Right.
Yes.
So wasn't that a Democratic mayor that took made a decisive move to lock down a city on COVID? And Newsom was a Democratic governor. I mean, you hear all the time, right? Like there's a movement now to recall Newsom from the right. But I guess there's the argument: have the Democratic mayors and governors been more decisive when it came to COVID? I'm telling you, the dialogue's all over the place, Jason.
Well, I mean, look, just watching the two conventions, like we started out saying, I mean, just watching how different they were and how different those realities were, which is what we'll keep coming back to.
Okay.
My instinct in watching them, my gut I'm talking about, just my whatever sense I have of balance, of common ground, let's call it. Not many red flags were raised on the hairs on the back of my neck didn't prickle as much during the Democratic convention as they did during the Republican convention. And that's just me, obviously, and maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm, more simple than not. I don't know. I'm just talking about me. I'm talking about my instinct. And
well, I would agree. It was scary to hear. What was his name? Guilfoyle?
Yeah. The open. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, that was frightening.
That was frightening. But that was truly frightening.
The use of the White House in that way, as a backdrop. So many things, and just the use of the facts and bending reality, because yes, and this brings me to QAnon as well, and I know I'm jumping around, but look, I mean, this is a frightening development, because conspiracy theories are really playing a part in people's, I guess, decisions more, it seems, I mean, I've been reading that, something like 1 in 5 Republican voters cite conspiracy theories as part of their influence. I'll find it here. I can't remember if it was Washington.
I remember as a kid growing up. As a kid growing up, the only conspiracy that we ever heard about was the assassination of JFK.
Exactly.
Now they're all over the place.
Yeah, there are conspiracy theories about the fires right now. In Oregon, the FBI in Oregon has had to, and not to mention the sheriff's department, et cetera, have had to field hundreds and hundreds of calls from QAnon followers about Antifa being responsible for the fires in Oregon. And they have to say over and over and over again, no, these are false claims. There's nothing resembling the truth here. Just as an example. We can take a break. We can take a break. Stay with us because I'm talking to Lou Esbin here, and just let me shout out to our other wonderful sponsor, Denny & Company, LLP, certified public accountants. They make your life less taxing. Tomorrow is the corporate deadline, so reach out to Matt Denny for all your accounting needs at dennyllp.com or by calling 661-286-8860. Denny & Company, they make your life less taxing. Stay with us right here on Common Ground with Lou Esbin. I'm Jason Downs, KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Green Thumb International, your lawn and garden professionals, have the widest variety of shrubs, flowering plants, and garden supplies in the Santa Clarita Valley. Condition and fertilize your soil. Water does not easily penetrate clay soils and may pass too quickly beyond the root zone of plants in sandy soil. Adding organic matter to these soils will help correct imbalances and reduce water waste. On Newhall Avenue in Old Town Newhall near Sierra Highway. Green Thumb puts the green in your thumb.
We all know sometimes people lose their way. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, the Way Out Recovery SCV may have the answers you've been waiting for. The Way Out is the premier intensive outpatient treatment center serving Santa Clarita. Asking for help is the first step. Call the Way Out today, 661-296-4444. That's 296-4444 for a private free assessment. The Way Out is an accredited, affordable outpatient program that accepts most insurance. Call us at 661-296-4444 or check us out online at thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. Quit battling with yourself. Ask The Way Out for help today.
Loss of hearing can affect the quality of life. Santa Clarita Hearing Center can help. They specialize in both preventative hearing loss and corrective measures, including diagnostic tests, new technology hearing aids, cochlear implants, hearing protection, and tinnitus treatment. They can adjust your current hearing aids or fit you for new ones. Santa Clarita Hearing Center also offers sleep molds, swim molds, and musician monitors. Book an appointment today. Log on to SantaClaritaHearingCenter.com. Located on McBean Parkway next to the hospital. That's SantaClaritaHearingCenter.com. If your home or business has been damaged in a natural disaster, fire, earthquake, or wind damage, turn to the experts who will fight for you, Maximum Insurance Recovery. For over 15 years, their insurance professionals have managed and negotiated every disaster claim, resulting in maximum recovery. Let them help you with your claim. Call 818-300-5777 or go online to maxinsurancerecovery.com. That's maxinsurancerecovery.com.
And now a cooking tip from Keith Mowry from Bob's Country Meats. Everyone loves chicken. It's easy to cook in a variety of ways, especially on the barbecue.
Marinate it overnight in your favorite marinade. Brown it up nice on the barbecue, and then put it on the other side in direct heat. Close your lid. Take another 25-30 minutes, and they're good.
Chicken, tri-tip, pork chops, turkey, steaks, even exotic game like buffalo and ostrich. For the tastiest chicken in town, visit Bob's Country Meats on Soledad in Canyon Country.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
All right, we're back. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. We're talking with Lou Esbin. I was just talking with Patty over the break. He was saying he was watching the two conventions as well, and yeah, he was saying, I may not agree with everything that he hears the Democrats say or the speakers during the convention and whatnot, but there's a big difference between disagreeing. Right, Patty?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between disagreeing with someone and not agreeing on the facts about a given situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. I feel like that's where we've skewed from reality, like we've been talking about, where where, and again, like Lou said, you even using the word reality is tough because, yeah, we all have different experiences. Your reality is slightly different than mine, it's based on your upbringing, based on, what have you. But to me, that's still different than whether or not the temperature of the planet is rising,
right?
Or whether or not somebody believes in pro-criminal legislation or anti-police. Or you know what I'm saying? To me, that's a simple untruth.
Yes.
Anyhow, so we were just getting passionate over the break, but yeah.
Well, even in court papers, I find that opposing counsel are twisting reality and facts, and I've come to use the term true facts. Imagine in court, I have to say, these are true facts.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And look at this is another thing that was going on during all of this, and it was the post office. The sudden attack on the post office was happening during all of that, which I know Congress acted really swiftly in response to that, and I haven't read much about it in the news the past week or two, so hopefully it seems like, maybe they got a handle of it. But, there's something along those lines that really concerns me about the election, and that is that I read that 534,000 mail ballots were rejected during the primaries across 23 states this year. 534,000. That's nearly a quarter in key battlegrounds for the fall, which, we're talking about. Is that coming from your end? Is there a buzzsaw in the background?
Yeah, it's from my side. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm gonna mute you.
That's okay. So 500,000 ballots. Some of these were missed delivery deadlines. Some of them were just inadvertent mistakes by the voter. Some of this was uneven enforcement of the rules, by individual polling stations. That's a lot of people. For instance, let's see. It says Trump won Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by roughly 80,000 votes. That's it. And they're throwing out 534,000 on top of this, ongoing assault on mail-in ballots to begin with that they're putting out. They're putting out and they're putting out. Out into the ether and into our ears about, distrusting mail-in ballots, which we've been doing this for years and years and years and years with no issue. And now he's got his friend in there, his supporter, running the post office. I mean, how is this okay? Is there any legal...
Well, I think that, what did I read one time? That the military has used mail-in ballots since the Civil War.
Yes.
Without issue.
Yes.
And I think even Trump himself
twice
uses a mail-in ballot.
Twice. So
right.
Why doesn't that give anyone pause, though? Why doesn't that change anyone's mind? I mean, because I would look at that.
When you bring it up to people, they dismiss it.
Dismiss it? How? And you're absolutely right. I mean, this goes back to the reality that we're talking about, because, when I was wrongly accused of something that I did not do, anything that I said in my defense, the people who were accusing me had some rationalization. Oh, well, this is why, you would say that. Of course you would say that. And this is why you would, what I mean? So is it that? I mean, are you saying that people dismiss it because they're just rationalizing for what? Their reality or what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's no longer any civil discourse. That's where we are today.
Which is why we started this show.
It used to be that in the House and the Senate, they sat across the aisle from one another, and they would duke it out in the halls of the House and the Senate. But then they'd go to lunch and dinner and hammer out policy. and compromise. It doesn't happen anymore. Look, as a lawyer, I'd go to court, I'd duke it out with my opposing counsel. Very often I'd have lunch or dinner with them. Well, COVID's changed that, but it's become more difficult. And I think that's a generational thing.
Other things that I mean, my goodness, all of this happening during the RNC was like I said, overwhelming. But they talk about things like Biden being controlled by environmental extremists. They talk about government-run health care. They talk about defunding the police, like you said, which is also, a misconception. Nobody wants to defund the police.
The Democrats have completely mishandled that. And they should have come off right away and said, nobody's talking about defunding police. What we're talking about is a reallocation of dollars to increase community patrol.
Exactly.
And, demilitarizing the police. Maybe that's what they should have been saying. So the Democrats have blown that dialogue completely.
Yes.
Completely blown that dialogue. And they only have themselves to blame. So,
that makes me think of QAnon again, which we mentioned before. So, this has become such a popular sort of place to find your conspiracies. Let me just read this real quick. It's a pro-Trump viral movement that began in 2017, so still pretty young. It spread widely over recent months, migrating from far-right corners of the internet to infect ordinary voters in the suburbs. And the article I read was these were soccer moms basically, out protesting, really not even protesting, really advocating for children's rights and against child trafficking, because that's one of the huge things, that the QAnon conspiracy theory is all about. Its followers believe President Trump is a hero, safeguarding the world from a deep state cabal of Satan-worshiping pedophiles, consisting of Democratic politicians and Hollywood elite who run a global sex trafficking ring, harvesting the blood of children for life-sustaining chemicals. And like I said, the articles I read, you're talking about, middle-aged women, 60-year-old women, being interviewed saying, just casually saying, they've got tunnels all across, under the United States where they snatch children and drink their blood. I mean, this is just casual conversation, and these are legitimate news sources, who are going out. This is Washington Post. This is New York Times. This is, asking people about, their belief in conspiracy theories. None of this is even remotely true. But an alarming number of Americans have been exposed to these wild ideas, and they're susceptible to them, which is also curious to me. I mean, so what do you think? What do you think's behind that? The willingness to believe these sorts of, because the other sense that they give is this rebellion. You know what I mean? They're fighting against someone, something. And that kind of unites them, and they feel purpose. I don't know how much you know about Pizzagate, for instance. It's all tied into this QAnon thing as well, and this was back during the last election, but it ended in a man, a father of three, I think 2 or 3 kids, getting in his car with a couple of weapons, and driving to Washington, D.C., where this pizza parlor is, where the QAnon followers believed that Democrats were holding children hostage in the basement of this pizza place. This gentleman believed it so wholeheartedly that he was going to save children from these satanic worshiping Democrats that he took those guns into a family restaurant and knocked down as many doors as he could find. The only one that had a lock on it was a closet where the employees put their purses and their coats. There is no basement in the building at all. And he had to come to terms with the fact that he was he was wrong, very, very wrong. And by then, of course, the place was surrounded by police, and he gave himself up, and will spend years and years and years in jail, not being a father to his kids because he believed this conspiracy theory. And people still believe it. And if you ask them about it, they say, hey, just do your research, dig deep. I have done all that. I have dug deep, and I've come out the other side. I still don't think it's real. That's not my reality. So I don't understand why any, and again, as we've, as Patty pointed out on Facebook a few weeks back, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I won't ever pretend to be. But why am I not susceptible to some of these wild ideas when it seems like, at least a third of Republicans are?
I think that throughout history, when society is in turmoil and someone holds out something for people to grasp, to make sense of things, then they do. And if you look through human history, that's what has happened. That's what's given rise to various forms of government and various wars we've had. When there is a lack of leadership, when there is a great amount of uncertainty, when all around you seems in turmoil, and someone presents to you a theory for it all, then there are people who subscribe to it.
So it's the opiate of the masses all over again, kind of thing.
What's that?
The opiate of the masses type thing all over again. Sure.
It's people who lose hope. They will look. Where does the term "drink from the Kool-Aid" come from?
From the mass suicide of the cult leader.
Right, Jonestown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why did all those people follow him? Because they felt despair, they felt lost, and so they grasped something that gave them hope.
But religion has always served that purpose, and that's fine. I feel like that's different too. I feel like it's spilled over now into, because you can talk about someone's faith, you can talk about, oh, well, this is what I believe, oh that's interesting, this is what I believe, kind of thing, or this is the church that I go to and this is the church I go to. Fine, beautiful, wonderful. What I feel is the grave difference now is that those beliefs are now applied to real facts. True facts. They're applied to reality in a way that never was before. It was, this, I mean, obviously, separation of church and state, has always been a foundation of this democracy. And we've seen those lines be blurred plenty over the years, but this is somehow different. Again, it's not even policy based, it is.
But Jason,
yeah.
But Jason, civilizations are built upon their institutions. And when their institutions break down, and there is a breakdown in society, and there's a breakdown in civility,
yeah,
there's a vacuum, and someone's going to fill the void. And that's been true throughout human history. And
very, very well put.
Isn't that really what you have? Isn't that really what's going on? So if you take 10 steps back and you look at it from 36,000 feet, and you consider human history, we may have advanced technologically. Our average age and the expectancy may be now in the 90s or even 100, but genetically, mentally, physically, we really haven't changed much. And so the vast majority of civilization is still subject to these influences. At least that's how I look at it.
I think that's very well put. This is a quote from Whitney Phillips, a professor at Syracuse who studies online disinformation. Democracy relies on an informed and engaged public, responding in rational ways. This goes to exactly what you were just saying. Responding in rational ways to the real-life facts and challenges before us. But a growing number of Americans are untethered from that. They're not on the same epistemological grounding. They're not living in the same worlds. You cannot have a functioning democracy when people are not, at the very least, occupying the same solar system. So stay with us.
So let me throw this.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out to you. Okay. Yes. It is, and I've said this before. You and I have had this conversation. It is not in the best interest of political parties to have an educated electorate, especially in the 21st century, because to have an educated electorate is more expensive per vote. Right? Yeah. The cost of acquisition of each vote when you have an educated electorate is far higher. So each political party, or any political party, has realized that an uneducated electorate requires less money per vote. And then you say to yourself, well, how can that be? They spend more money on elections than ever before. That's a function of money, and policy and politics and influence.
That's Lou Esbin. Stay with us. We're going to be right back. He's one of our wonderful sponsors, law offices of Lou Esbin. When experience counts, count on experience. Stay right here with us. He's going to give us some expert tips, thoughts, and advice here. EsbinLaw.com. That's ESBINLAW.com. 35 years serving this community. 661-254-5050. Lou, thank you so much again for being here. We'll be right back to hear some of your tips. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs, 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
These days, it's hard to figure out how to fill all the self-isolation time, let alone figure out what to have for lunch or dinner. Salt Creek Grill owner Greg Amsler is helping us out in a big, big way. Salt Creek is now offering takeout and curbside pickup, so you don't even have to get out of your car. Their entire menu is available for pickup or delivery, including to-go beer and wine. Hey. In addition, Greg's offering wine at 25% off, along with daily specials. If you'd like to buy a gift card for a future visit, now's the time. Buy a $50 gift card and get $10 extra on the card completely free. Buy a $100 gift card, you get an extra $25. Salt Creek Grill, located next to Regal Cinema at the Valencia Mall. For more info, go to saltcreekgrill.com.
This is Jill from the Santa Clarita Grocery, the all-volunteer grocery program serving children, families, and individuals experiencing food insecurities. Since January 2020, Santa Clarita Grocery has distributed 83 tons of fresh groceries to our 4,655 families in the SCV community. Santa Clarita Grocery is a drive-up, drive-through service with physical distancing in place to continue serving our community. If you are in need or looking for a charity to do the most good for our community, please consider partnering with us by donating to Santa Clarita Grocery, one of the most efficient charities in the Santa Clarita Valley. A full 99 cents out of every dollar goes directly back to the community. Santa Clarita Grocery operates on a 1% overhead and is sustained through private donations. Santa Clarita Grocery is at 21176 Centerpoint Parkway in the Oasis Furniture parking lot. Please visit our website at santaclaritagrocery.org or our Facebook at Santa Clarita Grocery to make a difference in our awesome town community. 425-7575. Be our guest and experience the difference.
The coronavirus has put us in a position of creating a new normal. Family Law at Home understands. Their goal is to meet you in the safest place possible, and these days that might be in your own home in a virtual meeting. Family Law at Home will provide you with immediate advice on your family law matters, such as divorce cases, child custody disputes, and domestic violence. It's as easy as going to FamilyLawAtHome.com. You'll choose your own consultation date and be in immediate contact with one of their esteemed attorneys. Family Law at Home handles the legal aspect while you and your family navigate the new chapter in your lives. Go to FamilyLawAtHome.com.
I listen to it all day, every day.
Hometown, your hometown station.
And we're back. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. It's great to have you here. We've been talking with Lou Esbin, attorney at law. A wonderful conversation as always. Thank you again so much for being here. This is the portion of the show that we'd like to turn things over to Lou and let him talk about some of the things going on in the legal world that are of concern to him and concern to you. For instance, Lou, tell us about the amendments to the California homeowners exemption that you were talking about.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Recently, a bill called AB 1885 passed the Senate, California Senate, and the legislature and the Assembly, heading to the governor's desk. It would increase the homestead exemption from its current jumble of between $75,000 and $175,000 to a minimum of $300,000 up to $600,000, based upon the median home price within the county. So, the median home price within LA County being over $300,000, closer to $600,000. People in the Santa Clarita Valley can now seek protection from their creditors in a bankruptcy case, for example, in a Chapter 7, and they will have an ability to protect up to $600,000 of equity in their property. For myself, as a certified bankruptcy specialist and the only one in the Santa Clarita Valley, this means that I can counsel people on filing bankruptcy and filing Chapter 7 bankruptcies rather than Chapter 13 bankruptcies, so they can truly get a fresh start almost immediately rather than waiting the 5 years for a Chapter 13. This bill was supported by Scott Wilk of the Senate. Scott came out and supported this bill. I thank Scott for his support. It means a lot to his constituents, and it will enable people in the Santa Clarita Valley to protect upwards of $600,000 of equity in their property. If people want to know more about this, they can contact me on my website, esbinlaw.com, or listen to this program again. But this is a great plus for people of our community, upwards of $600,000 of equity to be protected from creditors.
Now, the AB5 that we've been hearing a lot about the past year or so, which was met with some controversy, there have been some changes to that as well, to the labor union code for independent contractors. You want to talk about that as well?
Right. It's funny, called the labor union code. It's the labor code.
On the brain, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Their AB5 came out, and it was championed by Assemblywoman Gonzalez out of San Diego, who is a real union supporter. And basically, it took the rug out from underneath the independent contractor business model in California. There have been substantial amendments made to AB5 that now provide protections for many, many, many people in Hollywood, in journalism, across many, many different professions and areas of business. So that AB5 has really has evolved into a much better law. There was a business-to-business exception, so that if you are if two businesses doing business with one another and they meet the requirements under Labor Code Section 2776, I believe it is, then the restrictions of AB5 would not apply. There's a person-to-person or individual-to-individual exception with certain requirements, and then there's a referral agency exception as well. So it has really changed quite a bit. It has evolved over the last 2 years. I do not support Proposition 22, which is on TV constantly, that is supported by Uber, Lyft, and Postmates. That law is basically written for them. I don't believe it's going to be good law. I think it's going to wind up preventing competitors of theirs from entering to the marketplace. And I've always taken the position that those companies, people who work for them, are their employees because they have no choice in accepting work from anyone else other than from the app on which they're operating. So lots of great changes made to AB 5. Again, our Senator Scott Wilk supported those changes, especially as it affects writers and people who are in the entertainment industry. And again, I've got some literature on those changes. There's a company called Low Chief, which is a online application which supports the logistics industry, because people who want to make deliveries, they can get vetted and get work in making deliveries on behalf of motor carriers, logistics companies, and that's an online app. It's called lowchief.com, and that is regulatory compliant. So that's a very good company. Full and fair disclosure, I do a lot of work with them and counsel them. But that's a really good business for people to pick up some extra work in making deliveries throughout California.
Yeah, those Prop 22 ads are a bit deceiving, I would say, as well. Yes, I agree. Lou Esbin, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to converse with you today on this, where we strive to have a civil discourse, right? I mean, that's one of the whole reasons why we wanted to start doing this thing. Law offices of Lou Esbin. When experience counts, count on experience at esbinlaw.com. Please reach out to him for all your legal needs at 661-254-5050. As always, I'd like to thank my sponsors, Denny and Lou. I'm at Denny and Lou. The amazing staff here at KHTS, the owners, Jerry and Carl, our fantastic engineer, Patty St. Patrick O'Flynn. And be sure to join me next week as we continue the conversation, as always, with a focus on civility and unity. A pleasure to have you here on Common Ground, where we can always agree on the important stuff. I'm Jason Downs. You're listening to KHTS. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and stay positive.